strong-willed. You have to have a strong will. And during our team meetings, we're finally kind of organizing this. Compromise is not a virtue of decision making, you know. And the guy who talks the most, fight to make the loudest noise, the war of attrition, does not mean that's the right decision. You know, so we have to come up with facts and make a decision on that. And if we're wrong, you know, deal with it.
Today on the episode, we have Jaeson Bang. Jay is an entrepreneur, has been in the medical device space for a long time, a friend of mine, and I think that he has a lot of incredible things boiled up in his head, and he's just as smart as he looks. So we're happy to have you on the episode.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Jay, tell me a little bit more about who you are and the things that you've done in your career.
Sure. I started my career with Medtronic, so pacemakers and defibrillator sales. So that was a tremendous opportunity. And it's a technology sales. And we're working with cardiologists and cardiac specialists. So we're working on those type of products. And that was uniquely different because we are actually in the OR with the implanting physician. So we're providing the technical support. And when they're checking these patients at the office, we're also there to support that. And if the patient goes to the ER or hospital, we go there and check those patients. So it gave us a tremendous knowledge and insight as to what the patients are going through, physicians are going through, and also in the business side of the medical device.
I feel like it's very unique because nobody can ever say that you've never really experienced what the patient and what the doctors and everybody is going through, because it's something that I think really brings a lot of value to who you are as a person and what we're going to be talking about today. Is that normal in your space? The amount of time that you put boots on the ground?
For our industry, yes. So I would say maybe orthopedics might be like trauma type of orthopedic reps might be in that space where they get to work directly with the patients and the physicians. Other than that, I can't think of that many. You know, most reps are working just with the vendor side of the operation, drop off their products and go to a different hospital. Whereas we didn't have to do that. We work directly with these all the stakeholders. So very unique and privileged experience.
So tell me about how you transitioned from, working with Medtronics and selling and being, who you were, what you're explaining now, to this, this new passion that you have of Future Cardia.
Sure. Well, it's 20 years in the making. I had a great career at Medtronic. I loved it. And one day I get a call from my former boss asking me if I want to join a startup company. And he promised that I would work twice as much and make half as much. And he's true, and that was true. So I gave up a great career at Medtronic and went to a startup company. And that's when kind of things blew up. I really understood not only the field operation side, but the regulations, the vendors, engineers, executives. So I was able to work with all the main characters in that operation very intimately and develop a product on top of that. So did that for almost 18 years, had an opportunity to live in Europe for 2 years, run the European operation. And when I came back, I gave that all up to start my own company.
So talk to me about your company, Future Cardia.
Sure.
And we're going to talk about the device. Do you have the device with you?
Yeah.
So this is an implantable device, and I want you to tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. So the market has two types of monitoring system right now. External patches.
For your heart.
Yeah, for your heart, which is great for short term, great for convenience, perfect. And there's another device that goes inside the heart in a cath lab procedure. So this is for long term. Accurate, very expensive, complex.
Invasive?
It's a cardiac procedure. So yeah, you have to go through the femoral vein, through the heart, into the heart, and wedge a tiny sensor inside the heart. So very effective, but very complex and very invasive. So we got this two opposing forces. Short term, that's great for short term. Long term, that is great for long term, but not being used that much. So there's this huge gap in the middle. How do we combine the convenience, the long term, and effectiveness? So as an industry, Future Cardia is developed actually an implantable device that goes under the skin. It's a 2-minute office procedure that records ECG and heart sounds for long-term trending data of that cardiac patient.
So what makes this device so special compared to, anything else in the market? What's the patentable,
Sure.
part of this device?
The way we're approaching it is different. Pacemakers are pacemakers. They're all are differently patented, but they do the same thing. Same thing like cars. They're all patented in different way, but in the end of the day, they do the same thing. So that's how I see it in terms of the competitive space. Are we good? Yes. Are we competitive? Yes. Can we compete? Yes. So we got that checked. What the other guys are doing is you have to balance between the effectiveness and the marketability. So in my sense, what they went with is marketability. They made it smaller. While they're doing that, the effectiveness of the device went down. The antennas got smaller, the sensing capability got smaller, and at the same time, the cost of manufacturing something that tiny skyrocketed. So we wanted to balance between effectiveness and comfort. So this device brings the balance, the power of the device without compromising patient comfort and without compromising implant time.
But what does this device actually do? Because a pacemaker has its purpose. What does this device actually do for the heart?
Sure. So monitors it, nothing else. So imagine you have a irregular heartbeat that comes and goes, and it just completely destroys your life, right? You're doing perfectly fine, and all of a sudden your heart is beating at 120 to 220, and you don't know what to do. Go to the ER, and it's gone. And the doctor's like, well, I can't help you because I don't see anything. And then you go through this multiple visits trying to figure out what's going on. You put the patch on, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So you have no choice at the end to figure out what's going on with your heart. And at that point, the patient is indicated for something like this. We'll implant it. It's good for 2 years of battery power, and it records every event that patient would have. And all the data is sent to the phone and then to the cloud where physician would analyze that data.
So essentially, it's meant to almost prevent heart failure, or
no, for arrhythmia we monitor it. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, for heart failure, that's another disease where the heart is not pumping well. So you're already sick. So imagine you have a heart failure that your heart's not doing well, and some days are a lot worse than others. So what do? You're kind of stuck. Do I go to the ER or do I wait it out, right? The physicians are stuck because they don't know what to do for you either because they don't have that data. So this device will monitor that and give you trending information on how the heart is doing. And as it goes downward, will catch it and prevent or reduce unnecessary hospitalization.
So who's actually receiving that data, and what are we doing with the actual data that's being, and how is that data even, because the battery sends a signal to the phone?
Yep. So going back to the arrhythmia side, so the device sends the data to the phone, and phone sends it up to the cloud with using Wi-Fi or cellular. And then the physician anywhere will log into that portal and will see, patient Oscar, he had what kind of event on what date, what time, and he will have an actual proof as to what is going on with that patient's heart. And with that information, they can either treat you with medications or with procedures. On the heart failure side, what we're working on is cardiac function is trending up and down, and we don't know what to do. But when it's trending downward, so it's not an emergency, we're looking at a chronic condition. So let's say I saw something that I don't want, I saw something in your heart that doesn't look good. and I'm not going to call you and Oscar, you got to go to the ER right now. So that's not what we're doing. The physician would say, okay, it's something that I'm saying that, probably something we need to see. Have the patient come in on Tuesday or Wednesday next week, and then we'll tune up the patient.
So essentially, do you feel that the main reason for this device is so that those irregularities that happen sometimes spontaneous can be caught so that it can be corrected, where sometimes because you can't just spend weeks in the hospital waiting for this to be tracked.
Right. And you can't always go to the ER every time when you feel something, and more than half the time they don't see it there because it's gone.
So what provoked you to even come up with this idea?
Well, with the startup companies that I worked at, as much as I loved it, there was a point where I wasn't sure what value I was bringing to the patients. These are therapeutic devices, very traumatic for the patients, open heart, open neck, open chest, that type of surgeries. And after the surgery, we just give them a packet of, plastic bag and some information and send them home. And I always thought, these guys are most vulnerable at home, not at the hospital. I mean, we have great doctors and nurses at the hospital. That's not where they are in need of help because they already have it. Mm-hmm. They need help at home. And who's doing, what are we doing for these guys at home? Put some patch on and see what happens. It's like getting an insurance for 1 week, and what happens after that? So I wanted to come up with something long-lasting, and also leverage my expertise, which is an implantable device, and bring value that way.
What makes this patentable, compared to other types of devices? Because I know, reading up about, I know you said a lot about sound waves. Sound waves is one of the most intricate parts of this device. Can you talk about the sound waves and how that invention is and that idea makes this device so special?
Sure. So the way we see this is not so much the patent, but the execution. Yes, we have to have a patent, and patents are dime a dozen. You can get any kinds of patent. You can even buy it. You can license it. You can write it yourself. So the way I see this is, yes, it's patentable, but so is everybody else. I can write a patent, so is everybody else. And they can write that patent too. So our goal was to come up with a strong technology, patentable, of course, but execution was more important for us.
Well, right now we don't currently have a patent, right?
We filed four patents.
Does it have a current patent right now?
Yeah, it's patent pending. So it's not a patent yet. We haven't been awarded yet.
Talk to me about your team, because you always you keep mentioning it as we. So I'm sure. Talk to me about the we and how important is that we?
Oh, thank you. Well, I kind of say like the Dirty Dozen, the scene from The Predator, everybody, the specialists all coming in kind of thing. So that's how I see it. A bunch of greedy, scrappy engineers that have done it before. They're all VP levels, but they can get their hands dirty. I remember seeing a scene in Gladiator where the Russell Crowe's, he's the general, leading the fight, right? He's the first man out in the fight. So the guys that I hired are that guy. Those guys that can do the grunt work and at the same time be at an executive level.
Because you're an entrepreneur at the end of the day, so it's your job to put this team together. Talk to me about the team. What makes a team like this and everything that it takes to actually make a device? What do you need? What type of engineers? What type of doctors? What type of consultants? Because I think it's a lot bigger than people can imagine.
Right. So I say we have 7 employees, but we have about 30 people that's doing the work for us.
30.
Yeah, at least 30. And not only 30, probably another $50 million worth of equipment that we're utilizing. So the guys that I hire are 20, 30-year experience in this narrow focused industry. So it's not that we're better or worse than the others. It's one of those things. You're just so focused on one industry.
Experts.
Yeah. So we have one gentleman. He's doing mechanical engineering. So he's building everything for us, hand built. So he's actually training the company that we hired to use their equipment. So we're basically paying them to train them. So we have the mechanical engineer that's doing that, and he's the one who built this. We have an electrical engineer that knows the inside of the device, and then we have a regulatory person that knows how to file this with the FDA, and she needs more help. So we have a regulatory consultant that's assisting her, cybersecurity, all the regulatory standards that we have to meet, and then we have a contract manufacturing team that builds pacemakers. So, good example is like laser welder. It's like maybe a $500,000 machine, not a problem. A guy who welds it, probably $200,000 a year, top level engineer, not a problem. The problem is we may use this guy maybe 5 times a year. So that's where the problem is. You don't want to invest that kind of money if you're going to use the machine and the expertise 5 times a year. So we source that out to a contract house that already has all that. So we pay a premium for that facility cost, right? We're not renting the machine. We're not doing anything. I guess we're renting it by the hour. So we're paying premium for that, but we're also extracting all the resources they have without investing in the building and the machine and the compliance paperwork and the staff.
Yeah, because to actually, if you were to, self-perform everything that has to do with this, do you think that'll like almost distract you from the goal right now?
Of course.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have to put all the expertise in a silo, right? So if you're a mechanical engineer, you really shouldn't be trying to build this thing electronically because it guarantee it's going to be a disaster. So we have a specialist in each corner that's tackling the task, and then we move as one. So that's why I say the scene from Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger or Dirty Dozen, that's the scene that.
Yeah, you guys are just full of grit because this is something that's never been done before, at least at this type of scale. And I'm sure that there's challenges that you've gone through, because it's to have a scrappy group, I'm sure that they have to actually go through things and overcome things. What are some things you think that you've overcome with this device that Jay 5 years ago never saw coming?
Boy, there were so many,
Because I'm sure you saw COVID coming,
Yeah, I predict that one. So it's tough because, I worked with contract manufacturers for over 20 years. And my very first contract manufacturer, we almost, I would say we got oversold. One of the investor even came to the site, saw the whole place, fully vetted, and the guys that I trusted to deliver for us, and in the end they didn't do it.
Wow.
So we wasted 6 months and pretty huge sum of investment early on. So those kind of mistakes that we made, and then of all the things we've done, we got all the chips ahead of time. I never thought we would have a titanium sanction, so we didn't have a titanium shell to put our device in. So we got delayed for 6 months because we didn't have any
the actual shell.
Yeah, the metal can. Those little things that drove me nuts because it's out of control.
Because they're so simple.
Yeah, so simple. Yeah, microchips. Everybody's fighting for it, and we got all of them. And we're a small company, so we're not.
And I was trying to buy a car, and we couldn't buy a car because the trucks didn't.
Cars are a different situation because the chip that goes in there, you need like thousands of them. So even a 1 penny higher, then the price of the entire car goes up. Whereas in our case, we're so small manufacturing, it doesn't matter if it's 10 cents or $10. I just bought it.
Yeah.
So I got all the chips we needed, and we're like, we got it. And then
I think that's why you say that you guys are scrappy, because I can imagine you guys in that instance where you're like,
buy it all.
Buy it. It's in the grand scheme of things, and your big idea, none of that really matters. It's just you're trying to execute the actual this idea and putting everything together. It's an extremely complex thing that you're doing.
Yeah, it's an orchestra of teams of people that execute it. So our manufacturing is in Minneapolis, so we fly to Minneapolis, stay there to make sure everything gets done right, and train the whole team, come back, and then realize some of the people left. Gotta go back again, train everybody else, things like that. So those kind of scrappiness absolutely is essential in getting this done. And I saw this from a startup perspective. I see companies that are getting the massive funding, and first thing they do is rent an office, beautiful, beautiful office in downtown Silicon Valley. I'm like, guys, that's like 300,000, on rent just to sit there. So those are kind of things that I've done it, lived it, and not gonna do it.
Do you feel like you were conservative, or you've been conservative in the way that you spent and invested the money compared to some of these people? They put a big storefront and put a big sign, and where you were more focused on just executing.
Yeah, and that means a lot to me because we did equity crowdfunding, right? So we have a huge number of physicians.
How much did you raise?
$13 million. So, and this, $100 at a time. So these are blood, sweat, and tears of these investors that are trusting me. So absolutely, when we need to spend, we can write some disturbingly large check. But at the same time, when it needs to save money, we definitely will do that. So symbolic is a symbolic, but to me, buying a used furniture is a sign of grit.
Yeah.
So
it makes for a better story.
Yeah. I have a used furniture that I bought. It's a true story. And then when I had nothing, we had nothing, and my wife bought me a little paper tray, And now that we have a little bit of money, and she's like, "You want to change it to something else?" I said, "No, this is staying with me, with this company for the rest of my life." So those kind of things are very special.
Yeah, because you've seen from where where you're starting at the beginning, and even things that we've done here in our company. There's things that it really remembers and makes you remember the things that you've really gone through to get to where we're at.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
I think it's really, I think it's extremely special.
Yeah.
So you have this idea. You put a team together, a very sophisticated team. You start building this. COVID happens. You overcome a lot of obstacles through COVID in terms of the shell, and just every complexity that you can imagine. Talk to me about the transition into its first implantable device. It was through an animal, right?
Yep.
So how was the level of nervousness / excitement into that first device, and how did it lead into the first human trial?
Sure. So COVID, as tough as it was for us, everybody went through it. So to me, yes, it sucked. It was very painful, but no different than when any other entrepreneurs or any other people in the world had to go through. So, we dealt with that. So luckily, we didn't have to go to the hospital at that time. So we can just do the lab work. So it didn't affect us on that front. So we did the engineering, and the question is, how perfect do you want the device to be for our first animal implant? You can make it so complex, or try to achieve perfection that nothing works, or make something so horrible, nothing works. So again, there's a balance. So our goal was to implant acutely.
Who thinks about that, Jay?
That's
is you?
That's me. That is, engineers will tell you, what should we do? And they'll give you a roadmap, and then you gotta pick which one that you gotta pick. And then it's always, in my perspective, it's always incremental change. If you go for everything perfect all at once,
I just think it's
so
crazy
difficult.
because you have all these people that are experts in their field, and you have thought of this idea, but I also feel like you're so OCD about it, and the way that everything has been designed, and everything, the way even the size is, why is it this size,
Yep. And not only that, our insertion tool is also thought through. So that's another story. But yeah, those kind of things. Of course, I take input from my team, get their guidance. But ultimately, the decision to pull the trigger is on me. And of course, sometimes misfire, and then you learn from it, regroup, and move on. So our first animal implant, great facility, one of the best facilities I've been to in 20 years of this type of operation. So they helped
Where
us
was it?
in North Carolina, near Duke University. So we did. So our goal was to make sure the device works, make sure we can sense ECG and sense heart sounds and transmit that data to the phone and to the cloud. That was it.
That was the most. That was what we're trying to achieve.
Is it working? You know, K works on the bench. It works on my skin with a tape over it. Does it really work under the skin for 5 hours, 10 hours? So we achieved that. And then the next implant.
How did that feel?
That was a milestone. That was a milestone in a way that we achieved that fast. And I tell people half the time, half the cost. That's how we did it. But in reality, it's 1/3 the time, 1/3 the cost. It just takes longer for me to say 1/3, so I say half. But most startups of this complexity is $30 million easily.
To get into the first animal, and you did it with 13 million.
At that time, even less than that, we only raised maybe 5 million.
Wow.
Yeah, and these companies will be lucky to implant 3 to 5. We did 39 in human.
What do you think led? And I know, knowing you a little bit, you're a very humble person.
I don't know about that, but
What do you think? What do you think really led to being able to do it a third faster and a third cheaper? Because I think it's important. It speaks volumes of something.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yep. I observed what was going on in a company. I saw people, even at the startup, the heavily funded startups that I worked for, a lot of their work was sourced out because, like I said, it was very specialized. If you need a specialized knob, it's easier to hire an expert to do that than your team trying to figure it out. And a lot of the startups just do that. So we could have 20 engineers in my company, and chances are 80% of that work will be referred to an expert because that's cheaper and faster and more efficient.
Rather than trying to do it yourself. Yeah, they're working more, on the actual on the device, trying to develop it rather than. Or on the opposite, trying to focus on how to do it than working on it.
Right.
Which is what your focus has been.
Right. So
let's just get straight to the point and actually creating the device and not on creating this infrastructure to create the device.
Absolutely. And we streamlined the paperwork. Absolutely required. But you can do a 1-page report or you can do 30-page report. And there are companies who go out of their way to make 30-page report on something that doesn't need to be. And of course, if you do nothing, then it's really bad. Again, there's a balance. So that to me was really, really important. And I learned that actually listening to Bill Gates. He was talking about at Microsoft, I don't know how many documents they had, a couple 100,000, I guess. And overnight, he just cut it down to maybe 1/10 of it. And that tells me when a big corporation can do that, we can absolutely do that. And going back to the engineers, a lot of them are just waiting in these companies. The waiting is, of course, sometimes you got to wait, but a lot of them are just waiting.
Spending money, doing nothing, just waiting for that next
thing to happen, next project to come on. So we kind of eliminate that as much as we can.
That's why you keep saying that you guys are a bunch of scrappy people.
Yeah. And fostering a great communication, strong-willed. You have to have a strong will. And during our team meetings, we're finally kind of organizing this. Compromise is not a virtue of decision-making, and the guy who talks the most, fight to make the loudest noise, the war of attrition does not mean that's the right decision. So we have to come up with facts and make a decision on that. And if we're wrong, deal with it. And
like they say, Denzel Washington in Training Day says the loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room.
Oh, that's probably true. Yeah.
And then he goes and ends up smashing the guy's head over the piano. You do the animal device. It was a big success and definitely
we got it published. We got one published.
Wow.
So first one was just to make sure it works. Second was longer duration to make sure it works. Third one was like 2-3 weeks.
Wow.
Chronic, which is massively difficult. So imagine electronics inside the body, all the heat, the humidity, all that stuff, it has to survive it. So we did that. So at that point, we felt confident that we can deliver this device in human and bring value to patients. And even before that, we had a very huge help from Duke University. So we did a acute heart failure model at the university. So we got that data published.
Talk to me about that partnership, because that's. Did you ever expect to have a partnership like that?
It was a cold call.
Really?
I cold called
How
them.
did that make you feel?
Oh, it just, you know, I say a lot of good people helped us to get to this point. You know, investors and physicians, friends. So, yeah, he didn't have to do it, and it was expensive. We did it for free on top of that. So.
What do you think that people have been so willing to help you, Jay?
I don't know. I asked for it. I asked for help, and of course, some say no, but overall, it's been very lucky on that side.
Yeah, I feel like people just want to maybe help you, or they feel that there's maybe a bigger purpose here, that this device really could make a massive impact in society.
I hope so, and that's the plan. You know, at a startup, I always in the end of my startup career, I felt that I was like, boy, this guy just went through a massive surgery, and I'm not sure if it's going to help him. You know, so that bothered me a lot. And then with this device, man, I can put it in you, me, my family member, and I'd be perfectly fine.
Talk to me about FDA approval. How has the FDA approval been, and the process of you actually do you like that paperwork side of it, or you hate it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. We're just beginning, but FDA has been very kind, and they don't usually say yes, no, but they give you guidance. Mm-hmm. So that guidance has been very helpful. So that is allowing us to narrow our focus in what they want to see, and we're going to be able to deliver that.
How long is that process?
The gathering the packet usually takes about a year, and I think that's pretty fair. And I'm not the only one that's going through it. Every company that has to go through 510K has to do the same thing. So it takes about a year, and the approval process or clearance process usually about 6 months, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, depending on the complexity. So we're almost there. So our goal is to submit our packet by end of the year, maybe beginning of next year, and then get the approval by mid next year.
So who do you think is the biggest benefit for this device as soon as it gets approved and it's to market? Who would actually benefit from this actual device? And where does this device go? It goes right under
the left chest, mid clavicular.
Okay.
On the third or fourth rib space. So a little bit lower.
A little bit lower.
So almost near the apex of the heart, but it's under the skin. So, numb it up, make an incision, slide it in, cover with a Band-Aid or maybe a one stitch.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a predicate device. So we're fast follower in this space. So first indication is an proximal AFib.
How fast are they following you?
There's a one technology there. Maybe they were light years ahead, but now maybe 1 year ahead. So I think we'll catch up, and then by the time we catch up, we got another one that would probably beat them. So from an FDA's perspective, we have to meet the arrhythmia indication first. So we'll get that, and we are recording more data, so we should be able to expand into heart failure. So arrhythmia monitoring on the implantable side is about $1 billion a year business.
Wow.
It's only 3 companies fighting in that space. So we're going to enter that as number 4 player.
Mm-hmm.
And then heart failure side, there's only 2.
Oh.
And then we'll be the number 3 player. So put heart failure into a perspective. A company called CardioMEMS, maybe 12 years ago, got acquired for $500 million. Pre-approval, just by having the data in patients. And a similar device just got acquired for $1.6 billion like last week. And in my world, that number is not that high. Exonics is an implantable neuromodulation, $6 billion. Abiomed is a $16 billion acquisition. It's a heart pump.
Pre-FDA?
These are
Almost there.
Exonic is pre-FDA. Abiomed is approved and been commercialized for, I think, maybe 10 years.
Wow. Why this size? Because this is almost the size of USB.
Yeah.
Before I get there, can anybody get this? Like
No.
if I go to my cardiologist and say, hey, I saw this episode. I would love to put this. I want to check my heart, my heart rate. Sometimes I feel like I'm having a little panic attack at work because my boss is driving me crazy. Can anybody get this?
No.
Who is the person that would use this device and that a cardiologist would insert it?
A cardiologist would be the one that make that decision.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they would have to essentially feel that person is the most susceptible to actually having this device.
Right. And if you go to your physician and say, I think I'm having a heart, irregular heart, they'll first put a patch on you. And that is the right thing to do. That's the first line of defense. And that's that's the right thing to do. And then they'll try to figure out what's going on with using that patch. And if it doesn't work, then the patient has the option to go for the implantable.
Why this size?
Yeah. So if it's too big, obviously it's not good, right? If it's too small, there's a downside to being too small. The antennas gets too small, so it doesn't connect that well. The vector, the point A to point B, gets shorter, so the ECG gets less clearer, and the manufacturing cost of that tiny device skyrockets.
So the smaller device, the more expensive.
Yeah, and less effective. So there's a balance. So we wanted to bring a device that is powerful enough without compromising implant time. Because if everything takes 1 minute and mine takes 5 minutes, it's not going to work, right? So I wanted to bring a device that is powerful enough without compromising implant time and without compromising patient comfort. Because if patient doesn't like it, then it's done deal, right?
And what's been the feedback on the comfort level?
Patients don't feel it.
0.
Yeah, 0. So.
And how's the recovery time after they put it?
Yeah, it takes about maybe 5 days, 6 days. And if they put a suture in, it's an absorbable suture, so patient doesn't need to come back in. And sometimes we just put a tape. It's called Steri-Strip. Put a Steri-Strip over it, put a Band-Aid over it. So
they can go back to working out. They can.
Yep. I would probably recommend them to take it easy for a week, so that the open wound gets healed.
Yeah.
But after that, they can do whatever they want.
I think it's incredible, and I know that the reason that you're on this episode is because I really feel that this podcast serves a lot of purpose, but we want to do as much good as possible, and I really believe that that's one of the reasons that you've created this device, because it's a need. You're an entrepreneur. You're in the business to make money, but I also feel that being in this conversation for half an hour or so, I can see Jay 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, seeing something and saying, this can be so much better.
Yeah, I definitely. And I was learning too, and enjoying it, but at the same time.
Taking notes.
Yeah, but at the same time, I was like, can be better. And another thing is, because of my experience working directly with the patients and their family members, it really shaped the way I see things in this aspect, especially with heart failure. I have this patient that was a very athletic guy, and he's debilitated, and he's in bad shape, and he's, I'm like, boy, this is going to be a tough one. He may not survive the surgery, but he wants to do it, and he says, I just want to see my daughter getting married, things like that. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is going to make me cry. So those kind of things, and when a patient's really sick, the family member's like, what do I do? I don't know what to do with this situation. Some days are worse than others. Do I go to the ER or do I wait it out? And if I go to the ER, and what if it's a false alarm? And what if I wait it out, and if it's a big issue, then we're in even bigger trouble.
Oh, big problem.
And same thing from a physician's side. It's like, Jay, I know this patient. I wish I can see him today, but there's no room. I have to send him to the ER, and I have to see him tonight. I'll just cancel my dinner plan and just go and see him, just because I have no choice. If I can just bring him in on Monday or Tuesday, then I can figure out what's going on with this patient. But I can't, because I don't have the data. So I got all these perspectives. It all comes down to, chronic monitoring of a trending data. That's all they want. They don't want 2 a.m. calls. None of those things work for them anyway.
You guys are too reactive.
Yeah, so you got 20 patients and your device is beeping every hour. That's not going to help the patient or you. So they want the trending data to see if the patient's going declining, and catch it and steer the patient away from unnecessary hospitalizations. That's it. And it's usually a medication adjustment, some X-ray, some echocardiogram. That's it. Couple $100 solution. Instead, you go to the ER. It's a 30 grand.
So you're saying that this device essentially would save everybody more money?
Yeah, the heart failure is a $40 billion a year problem. I didn't mention that, but that's the problem. So all this, the problem that I'm mentioning is costing the healthcare system $40 billion a year.
Wow.
So if we can steer the patient away from emergency visits, unnecessary emergency visits, then we can save inconvenience for the patients and, of course, money and time for everybody.
Awesome.
And that's not my goal. That's the entire goal of the heart failure industry. So everybody's trying to figure out how to do that, right? Do we put a big vest on the patient and make them wear that thing for the rest of their life? So be it. Even put a tiny sensor inside the heart in a cath lab procedure, so be it. There's so many different ways to do it, but there's a huge gap in the middle, and I want to bring the convenience of the wearables and the accuracy of the implants into the under the skin approach.
What makes Future Cardia set apart? Would you say? Would you say it's that, or is there something else that you would say? This is what really sets us apart, and this is why our company is worth so much more than these other companies.
Sure.
What is it?
Limited players in this space, premium pricing, and high value to patients and physicians. That three combination is not available to other companies. So you have a great product, but there's 500 other guys in that space. You have great product that brings value to patients and all that, but there's 500 of you guys. So you're going to be fighting for one account. So the prices could continue to drop. You have a great product that nobody wants. So that's not going to help. You have a great product that nobody can buy. That's another problem, especially in U.S. healthcare system. If there's no reimbursement, nobody can buy it and nobody can afford it. So that's the huge advantage that we have that others do not.
Have you spoken with the insurance companies? What's the feedback that you're getting on the reimbursements?
Because we're a fast follower and there's existing products already out there too, that's already out there with the existing insurance coverage, we'll follow their path and we'll
which has been an effective path.
Yeah.
Ron, you have any questions? You always have good questions.
Has there been cases of like anybody rejecting the piece?
Yeah, I mean, with any implants that will happen, whether it be orthopedic or cardiac devices or anything. So there's a case of possibility of infection, possibility of the device coming out. So that is a risk for all implants. And but the benefit far outweighs that minor risk. It's inconvenient for the patient and the physician, but yeah, it does happen.
What's the time frame from like the patient meeting with the doctor and then the implant being put in?
It depends. So let's say you just experienced this and you went to the ER, couldn't figure out what's going on. Gosh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I would say maybe 1 month, 2 months before that decision's made.
Right.
So for that month or two, you're just pulling your hair out because you can't figure out what to do.
Waiting game.
Yeah, because you're in a meeting and the heart just going crazy. You're sleeping, it's going crazy.
Right.
And it's not just that. You could have a stroke from it. So now you're even more worried, right? So you got this blood clot that could go to your brain and cause a stroke. So now you're not sure what to do, so you got to take on a medication for no reason. So these are a hugely inconvenient and scary proposition for the patients.
Right. And my last question. I'm sorry. I'm like.
No problem.
I mean, I might be getting kind of jumping ahead, but have you guys thought of already like a version 2.0 or like the next level, or how do we improve
Sure.
what we're
Sure.
kinda
That's a good
working on
question.
already?
Yeah, very good question. So we live and die by the battery. So I didn't want to build a battery and that's massively expensive, and takes a long time. So I don't want to build a battery and don't like it in 3 years, right? The technology is moving so fast. So we built a battery that is smaller than what we have now, so we can future-proof the device. And I was telling Oscar, everybody's about the same. It's a competitive, but not one company is so much better that you abandon everybody and go with one company. So everybody's competing in that space, but we have another technology that's coming in that would surpass the others. Oh, and another thing about being small, you can't put anything else in. You're done. The design is frozen, right?
There's no space in the actual device.
There's no space.
Can you talk about the things that you want to do, or that we can't talk about that?
Yeah. So right now we got the electrical sensor for ECG. We got a mechanical sensor for heart sounds. We're going to put an optical sensor for the oxygen saturation, and maybe.
What's an
blood pressure.
optical sensor? What is that?
Just like on the back of your smartwatch, it senses the pulse of the blood flow within your artery. So you'll see that little boom 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 just from the optical sensor. So we're going to be able to get that directly from the heart.
I think it's crazy because I think if people watch this episode, they would realize like that was like 5-year technology ago, but one thing is a wearable device and one thing is an implantable device.
Yeah.
And one thing is an Apple Watch that you can put on and the battery lasts a day. You're trying to create a device, the fraction of the size that lasts
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
That's where
So we do have to make a compromise. So on some of the wearables, the graphic is beautiful, right? Just awesome graphics. We don't have that beautiful graphics on our side because the doctors don't care what the color scheme is. They want to know the data. So we save battery on that. So there's a lot of things that we can do to efficiently build a device. So we got that, and then voice activation. So before you have to have like a little clicker, you gotta click it and try to, I forgot, it's on my keychain. Where's your keychain? Oh, it's at home. So those kind of problems. Right. Our device will be voice activated and also tactile activated. So those are things that we already have, but we're focusing on our Gen 1 first.
But it's already in the works.
Yeah.
So somebody starts maybe feeling something and they say, oh, this is the time, this is what I'm feeling, what I was feeling, and they activate it.
Yeah. They can do that. They can turn it on by talking to it.
I think it's crazy. There's so many people that do so much more difficult things than just building buildings, But everything has its intricacies. Jay, I really appreciate you coming on the episode and explaining how this little device can really change someone's life. You know?
Absolutely. And I owe it to all the investors that believed in me and they made a bet on me and trusted me. And when I first started this, I turned down $5 million VC money, and I had almost nothing in the bank account because I sold everything. And then one big time angel helped me with a small check, and I said, well, I'm going to just keep raising money this way. And equity crowdfunding was just nice to have approach. And it
worked.
And then $13 million later,
Well, listen, I know a couple of your investors, and they're very appreciative of the hard work and the stewardship that you've had. I think that if anyone can lead this into a success, into a big buyout, is you, and
Thank you.
And they have all the confidence in the world in you. So don't give up, and I'm sure that more challenges are going to face you.
Absolutely. But it's a joy. It's a joy to do this. Joy to represent over 10,000 investors. So I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
Well, we're gonna have a lot more fun when it's sold for $15 billion.
I don't want to
hopefully
overpromise, underdeliver.
Okay, we'll lower the valuation, but hopefully, if it ever gets sold, hopefully you still pick up the phone. You know, do you think you still pick up the phone?
Probably not.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. Well, we got the valuation when I started the company. It was 1.6 million, and then 5 million, 20, and 40, and now at 44 million. So,
You guys are on the right. You're on the right track.
thank you.
Well, I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully, you learned something. I definitely learned a lot, and how things like this little device can go in your skin and detect, honestly, heart failure and a lot of other things. And there's a lot of people out there like Jay. Maybe you're one of them that you see something. You know, you see a need, and people always ask me when you're starting a company, why did you start the company? You know what I tell them?
Yeah.
I saw a need. It's not that hard. You just got to work hard, have a need, and try to do always the right thing. And it's almost impossible to not succeed with those 3 ingredients. So
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy the episode. I wish you the best of luck, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you very much, Oscar. It's a
No, thank you
pleasure.
for having me, Jay.